Hello, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. Today, Santa Clara County Supervisor Susan Ellenberg and San Jose Councilmember Pam Foley will help us understand who does what and the county. In other words, when you have a problem, who you're going to call. Our city and county governments serve the same constituents, but we don't always know which one to contact when we have particular problems. Both Supervisor Ellenberg and Councilmember Foley, by the way, are up for re-election this year, but unlike some of their colleagues, no one has filed to run against them. So we'll ask how they manage that in these tempestuous political times. And that's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Santa Clara County Supervisor Susan Ellenberg and San Jose Councilmember Pam Foley.
Nice to be here.
Happy to have you both back with us today. You've been previous guests. Let's start off by just getting a quick description of your district, starting with you, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Absolutely, and it's perfect time to do this as we've just finished the redistricting process. My district is called District 4. And it includes all of the city of Santa Clara and the city of Campbell, a whole bunch of neighborhoods in West San Jose, and we overlap with San Jose City Council districts 1, 6, and 9.
Which brings us to your district, Councilmember Foley, Council District 9, which overlaps with the supervisorial district.
That's right, and I happen to be in Supervisor Ellenberg's supervisorial district personally. So my district, District 9, is also redistricted, made up of about 100,000 residents. It's starting in South Willow Glen down to Blossom Hill Road, over to Campbell, and then to Highway 87.
Thank you. So before we go any further, we should congratulate you both on your re-election. I know it's a little premature to congratulate you, but I think it's a safe call, given that neither of you drew an opponent. Nobody filed to run against you. So I'm pretty sure your colleagues who have opponents would like to know how you did that. Pam?
Well, I've been getting asked this question quite a lot lately, Terry, and first thing that I have to say is I attribute it to my fabulous District 9 staff. They are very responsive to a community member. Anytime a resident, a neighbor, anyone calls us with a question or a concern, we respond. We have a policy at District 9 to get to yes. So sometimes that's really easy to do, but we really work hard to provide a yes answer and accomplish whatever it is our resident is looking for us to do. Plus, we did a tremendous amount of outreach in the last few years. So I think it's a combination of things, but mostly it's because we're really responsive. My staff is really responsive, and so I attribute that to them.
That's good for them, and good for you to give them credit for it too. Supervisor Ellenberg, what's your secret?
Well, before I share my secret, I am a little chagrined that I left out the unincorporated pocket of Burbank from my district, and they are a wonderful pocket in the heart of my district where Valley Medical Center is. So I just want to make sure that Burbank has their proper shout out. My office as well has just worked incredibly hard to be responsive to constituents and to really lead on policies that are so important to so many residents. I agree absolutely that we are only as good as our staffs, and our mantra, well, we haven't specified how do we get to yes. What I say a lot in my office is that I don't have to be right, but we have to do the right thing. So there's a lot of conversation and a lot of back and forth amongst my very smart, accomplished team members who help me grow and learn and understand issues and ultimately get to the right decisions.
Some of your colleagues who weren't as lucky as you all, who are running for re-election with opposition, are already being attacked for doing too little on homelessness and blight. If you were running, I'm pretty sure you'd be attacked for exactly the same thing, doing too little on homelessness and blight. What would your response be, Supervisor?
Well, first, that's a fairly simplistic response, because there is so much that is being done by the county as well as the city to address homelessness. The scope of the challenge is so immense that it can be challenging to see significant progress, certainly when you're looking at it on a daily or monthly basis. But as a result of Measure A and the county's entrance into permanent supportive housing, we have housed more than 6,000 people. We've got hundreds of doors already open, more projects in the pipeline. It takes time. The real core issue to address homelessness is housing, and housing isn't built overnight. So we are making significant progress. The challenge is that people in our community continue, in too many cases, to fall into homelessness faster than we can get them out. So while we need to continue and expand and expedite the building, we also need to be paying significant attention to how we prevent people from losing their housing, and that is so salient right now because the moratoriums on evictions that were put in place during the pandemic are set to end, and it is in nobody's interest, landlord, renter, neighbor, business, school, or government, to see hundreds or God forbid thousands of people lose their homes. So this is our existential challenge, but I would really reject the premise of anger based on the fact that we're not doing anything.
Say that number again, the number housed.
More than 6,000.
Thank you. Pam Foley, is the city doing enough?
The city can always do more. We build housing. That's our responsibility in addressing homelessness. The county provides the services, the social services that are so important that Supervisor Ellenberg just mentioned. We can build housing. We have a proposal to build 1,000 quick build units for supportive housing this year. The mayor has prioritized homelessness as a budget item, as have I. The criticism is fair, though, that it appears that we haven't done enough, because when you drive around different areas of the district, my district or the city, downtown, you see an unhoused population, and that affects them. It affects the businesses, it affects the residents. So we need the housed residents. So I would say that any given day, 50% of our calls are related to homelessness.
Wow.
And we are working to address services, support services, how we can help in various ways. We need to allocate more money for blight through our Beautify San Jose program, and that is also a priority. That's where we provide trash pickups at the various encampments and other services like showers and things like that that are helpful to make the area clean for both the unhoused who live there, but also for the neighboring residents who don't want to see the trash. And the trash sometimes attracts illegal dumpings, which we have to address at a different level, and that's what I consider the blight as well. So we haven't solved the problem. It's a huge problem to solve, but it's not for lack of trying. We just have to keep trying everything, and as a program, figure out and work with the county in close proximity to create programs that are going to be successful and really build more housing, because it starts with the housing, getting people off the streets.
Thank you both. I ask that because we're all alarmed by the level of homelessness and blight, but the city and county actually have done a lot and should get credit for what has been done, and then we can push you to do more.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That is what we're here for.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for what you've done. And of course, that's a responsibility that's shared between the city and the county. Pam, you made a good distinction. The city builds the housing, the county provides the services to make it work successfully.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the other main reason we wanted to talk to you both today. Supervisor Ellenberg was your guest at a recent town hall you held, as you frequently do. And the topic was, do I call my council member or my supervisor? Which is our question for the day, to see if we can help people figure that out. But before we do, I wanted to just kind of go back a step, and talk about constituent calls and constituent services generally. So what's the rough average of constituent contacts you get in a day or a week, Supervisor?
In an average week, to the extent that such a thing exists, we will receive 200 to 300 emails, maybe a few dozen phone calls, and occasionally postcards. When there's a particularly I would say controversial, or at least issue of great importance to the public.
Like redistricting, maybe?
We could receive that many, and we often did, in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pam?
Very similar numbers. It's really hard to track because depending on the issue, we could receive 100 of emails a day on a particular issue. If we don't have a controversial issue or something that the residents or community is passionate about, then maybe 50 to 100 a day. But we do a lot of outreach too in addition to that. The most correspondence we get is email, phone calls, and we're not afraid to, if need be, pick up the phone and call them ourselves. If we get an email, we may respond with a phone call, because sometimes that's easier. Once in a while we get snail mail, and once in a while it's a postcard, a writing campaign of some sort, but mostly it's email and phone calls. And then just by us being out in the field all the time, engaging the community through our office hours, through our town halls and everything else, we get a lot of input from community that way.
And being at the grocery store anywhere else,
Right.
you get, hey, can I just talk to you for a minute? And then it's a
Right.
20-minute constituent service meeting, and that's part of the job
That's
as well,
true.
I think.
That's true. Good point.
So what are some of the most common concerns that you get emails about?
So the city does things unlike the county. Like, we're responsible for paving our streets. You have some streets that you pave, but most of the residential streets we pave. So some of the calls we get are, my street isn't paved, when are you going to pave my street? There's a pothole in front of me, when are you going to repair my pothole? And we divert them to our app, San Jose 311. You take a picture of the pothole, you tell them where it is, they'll come out and fill it within 24 hours.
Wow.
Those are the kind of calls we get. We do get a lot of calls about encampments, fires, things at the encampments that concern the neighbors who live right on the other side of a retaining wall. A lot of concerns about traffic speeding down residential streets, and what can we do to prevent that. So we try to navigate all of those and find solutions for them, and sometimes it requires big traffic studies and try to get things done that way. But
I'm not in your district, council member, but the streets in my neighborhood are being paved this week, and they're doing a terrific job, and people are very, very happy, although they grumbled about the no parking, but I bet you've heard that.
I have. It's a little penalty you have to pay in order to get your street paved all the way. Otherwise, they're paving around. You don't want that.
Well,
or it's getting towed, actually.
Worse.
Yeah.
Well, they've done a beautiful job,
Right.
and quickly, I think ahead of schedule even, so you got some good contractors working for you.
Great. Thank you for the feedback.
Supervisor, most common kind of calls?
As you might imagine, over the last couple of years, the most common issue that's been raised by our constituents are questions around COVID. And that has ranged from questions specifically around the disease, the mask mandate, the vaccinations. It's also been about the impacts to small businesses, impacts to employment, impacts to childcare, questions about the schools, lots of confusion about who governs what rules the CDC makes, the state makes, the public health officer
CDC is
makes,
the federal
Center for Disease Control. So that has been the bulk of our work for most of the past couple of years. More recently, as we move away from COVID. Well, another issue that was frequent at the beginning of the pandemic were calls about the clerk recorder's office and marriage licenses and death certificates, and when a lot of our offices were operating with smaller staffs and you weren't allowed to come in person, we dealt with a lot of constituents who were trying to reach various county departments, and we were able to help connect people there. Aside from COVID, we tend to hear a lot about the health and safety issues, because that's primarily where county government is working. So we will get questions about mental health services, behavioral health services, regular health clinic services, lots of questions of trying to understand, again, the distinction between the police department and the sheriffs. In fact, it really is a lot of questions just about roles, even for us. Am I calling the right person? We engaged during the pandemic. Some of the actions that we took were to eliminate fees for small restaurants to pay their health inspections. They still had to have the inspections, but we waived the fees because the county was better able to absorb that. And we waived weights and measures fees for small grocery stores and gas stations, and had so many people reach out and say, I didn't know you guys did that. I didn't know that you had anything to do with the restaurants or with the gas stations. And it's been an interesting civic education process as well, which I'm always happy to take an opportunity to do.
They are the restaurants and gas stations in unincorporated areas.
No.
Oh, really?
No.
See, I didn't know that either.
We do
So
the health
that's
inspections
countywide.
for every restaurant countywide. Yes. If you are eating there, we have been there and
that's a
checked it
pretty
out.
Well, it's a pretty big deal for these small businesses.
It absolutely
Yeah.
is.
It was a helpful thing, very helpful thing to do.
Yeah.
What are the calls you get that you refer to Pam?
Potholes, zoning permits, things that are infrastructure related.
You mentioned police versus sheriff, too.
Yeah, San Jose PD. I don't think we send anything else to you.
And vice versa, what about,
We send all of our COVID questions over to Susan because people think we have something to do with it. We did make some city decisions, but mostly it was governments above us that were making that decision for us. But also sometimes residents will call about a street like an expressway that is maintained by the state, the city, or the county. So we'll have to clarify whose responsibility at that. We do get a lot of mental health questions, which we send over to the county supervisors all the time, or the county departments. We're not sending them directly to your office. We're sending them to your staff people to help address. So that's, I would say, primarily some of the issues, but we got a lot of COVID questions. And two, we do get a lot of questions from about schools, and I think I need to have a town hall on roles of school districts versus city versus county. We can have a whole roadshow
We could do that
going.
together too.
Yeah.
Pam and I
We could do it
sat
on our
on the
own, yes.
San Jose Unified School Board
you both
together.
were school trustees,
Yes.
yes. So you know that level. At some point, maybe we'll talk about how many local governments there are that people have to contend with. You know, I work with an advocacy group for the Five Wounds Trail. It's an old railroad line that runs through central San Jose. We deal with 7 different government agencies. Multiple school districts, city, county, water district, VTA, especially VTA, but that can be frustrating for a community group. So any advice that you can give from your offices to help people channel their interests and concerns in the right direction can be very significant.
Yeah, and what I'll say is that sometimes, even if it's county's jurisdiction, we'll try to help the resident navigate it to some degree and maybe interact with the county to get the answer for the resident instead of putting the resident through the phone tree that they have to go through, if it's something we can
Right.
handle. But other times it isn't, so we just need to forward it over to the supervisor's office. And
Yeah, people
Yeah.
can
Have
feel
them
like
take
you're just passing the buck if you don't kind of
Right.
constructively guide them to the next stage.
Right, we want to help them.
which is absolutely something that can happen and really understandably frustrates residents. They don't want to hear, this isn't my job, go
Yeah.
find this person. So at a minimum, doing the warm handoff and helping, or when we're hearing that somebody is being sent around in circles, we try to get all of representatives from all of those offices. For example, with cleanups on Caltrans land along the freeways, the neighbors want us to get it cleaned up. The city wants to be involved. The county wants to be involved. None of us can actually go onto the freeway and lead cleanups.
Right.
It's Caltrans. If Caltrans doesn't respond, they come back to us. So
Right.
we really, really try to avoid having people move into that vortex of, it's not my job.
Yeah.
Supervisor Chavez played a convening role in that sense for us with the Five Winds Trail projects to get almost all of the affected agencies together and try to move things forward. And it helped, but it still takes a long time to get 3 or 4 or 5 agencies to agree and move forward. Do you have any kind of general advice for people who are they've got a problem and they're thinking, who do I call?
Start somewhere, because if you've started at the wrong place, you will be directed. When I was teaching middle school students, one of the lessons that was really important was understanding how government works at every level, why it's important to build relationships with your elected officials at every level, and to know who the right person is to go to with the right issue. And that's something that I would encourage all of us, to the extent that our constituents are interested, to really offer that kind of civics education. And when Pam and I did that with the city county, we made it a lot of fun for our residents. And I think that education and being present and visible is really important. I found that when I was running for this seat, I would knock on people's doors and they would have no idea what I meant. Who are you supervising? Why is that something that I care about?
Yeah.
And county government in particular can be a very invisible layer, particularly if you don't need the safety net, the social services. You may be completely unaware of county government, and to some extent that's good. It means you're living a somewhat stable, somewhat well-resourced
That's true.
life, and that was really how I introduced the notion of what county government does.
I think it's important for anyone who has any issue, any concern, that they reach out to the office that they think is going to help them. And it could be that it's someone in the Willow Glen area who reaches out to me because they know my name, and we'll do what we can to help them. Our job is to respond with respect, with validation to their concerns, and then to try to solve the best we can. And that may be that we have to forward them to someone else, but we're not passing them off until we've heard their story, until we've heard what they're looking for, and then we see, well, maybe at the city we can help you here, or this is a county thing, or this is Valley Water, or this is VTA.
Right.
We'll start here, but this is where you need to go, and this is how you need to advocate it. So we need to make sure that our staffs are responsive to our community as much as we are. We're the electeds. We set the tone for our staffs. And you asked early on why we don't have any opposition, and I think it's because, number one, we have fabulous staffs. I'm not going to rescind on that. But they take their tone from the city council person or the supervisor. And that tone for both of us, not speaking for you, but is to take care of our residents, to help improve their quality of life, whatever that is that will help them.
And I would add to that it's important that we have relationships, that I know that I can call my council members, assembly members, senators, congressional rep. I haven't chatted up Senator Padilla on the phone yet, but the fact that we know each other and are comfortable and can call and triage and help is a really critical piece too that our constituents may or may not think about, but if we are not comfortable with each other, it makes it much harder to pick up the phone and ask for help, which is really what we're doing.
Yep.
What about when somebody not in your district calls and says, my supervisor, my council member, I'm not getting a response from them? You both actually represent the whole county and the whole city, as well as your specific district. So what do you do then? Because you could also offend a colleague by delving into their territory, right? Pam, you're smiling. You must have a solution. Or it happens.
We get called all the time from all sorts of different city council districts, and we really try to assist them, but we involve that council district as quickly as possible, because we do need to hand it off to them. They know their neighborhoods, they know their communities better than we do, and while we try to assist, I don't want to get in the way of how that council member or that council member's staff would handle it. So while we will take the call, we will also recommend and forward not just the person to the other district. We'll make sure we've made contact with the other district and let them know what their concern is and what we have responded to, and then let it go, let them take it from there. So I'm smiling because some council members could be a little territorial, and I'm not. I just want to help everybody out, and the district boundaries are kind of arbitrary as they are. I live half a block from District 6, so some of those people who live in District 6 think they're in my district, or vice versa.
And they might have been.
And they might have been at one point, and so it's difficult to balance that with redistricting, but we'll start with everybody and then get them to the right source to help them out.
And I immediately engage the supervisor and let them know that this constituent reached out to us. And while certainly it's possible sometimes that the constituent didn't receive a response, it's often not unheard of that the outreach on the part of the constituent may or may not have actually happened, or it's possible that they got an answer that they didn't like. Mm-hmm. So I would never presume non-responsiveness on the part of my colleagues, certainly not intentional non-responsiveness. So I would let them know immediately, hey, I got this call or an email from someone who says they're not hearing back from you. And there hasn't been, at least for me in my years here, an exception to that supervisor saying, oh, thank you so much, I will take it from here. And then I'll let the constituent know that I did this and I'm certain you'll hear. If for any reason you don't hear back in a couple of days, let me know and I'll make sure I can help you close the loop. But I've never had to do that.
Yeah.
We have about a minute left.
Okay.
I have a whole list of hypothetical cases I was going to make you answer. But since we only have a minute left, I can't. So I'm going to give you an opportunity for sort of a last word on the subject. Maybe how did your town hall go with Susan?
It was so much fun, and I received so much positive feedback afterwards that people finally understand what the county role is and what the city role does. We had so much fun. We're talking about taking it out on a road show, or at least doing it next year, and creating a game interaction with our residents. So it was helpful.
That's a great idea. Cut me in. I am on your email list.
Okay, good.
Susan?
Yeah,
just a few seconds left.
It is a lot of fun to do that and to show not only where we do different things, but where we overlap. Mm-hmm. And I always use the parks as an example. Yeah. There are lots of city parks, there are 28 county parks. They have different functions and different roles that they play for our residents, but all are important and wonderful.
Yep.
Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, Councilmember Pam Foley, thanks for being with us today, and congratulations on your prospective re-elections.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
We'll be back next month with a preview of the June election, including special guests. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can catch up on all our previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org, or on YouTube by searching for Create TV San Jose. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.